It's day 60 of 118 days with the Tudors, and today we're looking at 1544. And this is the year that Mary and Elizabeth are restored to the succession. So Henry has muddled about with the succession during his reign, depending on which wife he had at which time. So let's just take a little rewind to see how we get to this point. So in 1534, he brings in the first act of succession, which is when he essentially cuts Mary out, and he says any children that he has with Anne Boleyn will be the rightful heirs. But then Anne Boleyn's out the window. So in 1536, we have the second act of succession. So this is when he's married Jane Seymour, but Edward isn't born yet. So in 1536, we get the second act of succession, which says any children that he has with Jane Seymour will be first in line for the throne. And Mary and Elizabeth are also out at this point. And what he does in the second act of succession is that he says any illegitimate children cannot inherit property. So that also disqualifies his illegitimate son Henry Fitzroy at this point. So the issue with this is then, if he's cut out all of his current children from the act of succession, there's a worry that the children of James V in Scotland could have a right to the throne. So what he does is then, to cut through that, he says, but I have the right to name any successor that I want. So there's a chance then that he can name Henry Fitzroy if he wants to. Now, this is a very bold move, and people aren't happy about this at all. He's basically chucking common law out of the window, and as usual, doing what he wants. So this is laying the ground for future support for the Grey family, because by saying he can name anybody he wants, he's cutting out the Stuarts in Scotland, and he's cutting out the Grey family, all who have real claim to the throne. 1536, by doing this, he's making his own rules. People aren't all that happy about it, and those sort of thoughts are there already in place, that in the future there'll be support for Stuarts and Greys. So in 1544, we get the third succession act. So he's changed his mind again. What a surprise. Now, in this act, obviously Edward has been born, so Edward is first up. He gets first pick at being the monarch. But it's not as simple as straight after Edward come Mary and Elizabeth. So he's restoring them to the succession, but they are actually quite far down the line. So what you've got is, if you remember, Henry at this point is married to Catherine Parr. So we've got Edward first, and then any of Edward's children. Then we've got any subsequent children he's going to have with Catherine Parr, just in case, you know. And then any children he's going to have with the wife that comes after Catherine Parr. So just in case he gets rid of her and has another wife, any children that he has with her will be next in line. And then the children of the children he has with that wife. And then after all of that, you've got Mary and Mary's children, and Elizabeth and Elizabeth's children. So yes, they have been restored, but actually they're pretty far down the food chain when you look at it like this. Now, Catherine Parr is often attributed some credit for having these restored, and it's kind of shown in this light of, you know, maybe she sort of brought Henry round, you know, and she was bringing everybody back together, but it's suggested that she should be given credit for putting them back in, and that may well be true, but I do think we need to put it in the perspective of, yes, they were included, but they are very far down, and Henry is still thinking, well, I might have more children yet, and I might have more children with another wife. So he's imagining them quite far down there, but also he wants to make sure that the Stuarts can't have a claim to the throne and the Greys can't have a claim to the throne. So while it's lovely to imagine this idea of Catherine reuniting the family and Henry saying, oh, come on then, you can all inherit the throne, he's actually thinking, let's make sure none of these other people can slip in and take the crown. That's my take on it anyway. Maybe I'm a bit sceptical. So that's today. 1544, Mary and Elizabeth have been restored to the active succession, albeit quite far down. But bless Henry, thinking he's still got all these years in him left, all these other children with these other wives. If only he knew, hey? I'll see you tomorrow for 1545.